My name is Memo Ngui from Industrial Psychology Consultants. I would like to welcome Tom to this session. You can see he's excited to be linking up with people from all over the world, and specifically from people in Zimbabwe. We would like to welcome you, Tom. I will give you the floor so that you can introduce yourself. Once I introduce you, the floor is yours. Just for the participants, if you've got any questions, use the chat room. You can put on the chat any questions that you may have at the end when Tom is done with the presentation. We are going to take questions. We'll take questions on the chat and also open it up for others who may want to talk to Tom directly. Tom, it's now over to you.
All right, super. Let me see if I can share my PowerPoint presentation here. Here we go. In this webinar, I'm very glad you were able to join us today. So my name is Tom Haak. I'm in the Netherlands. As you can see, I tried to find the shirt of the photograph. It's not totally the same, but I think it resembles quite good. So we have roughly, oh, there we go, 1 hour. Yes. My background, my background is in international HR. I was HR manager, director in several of the companies you can see there. When I was working for Aon, I was the global head of HR for what they called the rest of the world. And that included Africa. So in those days, I traveled a lot to Africa, also to Zimbabwe, South Africa, Kenya. Those were the countries where Aon in those days had a good presence. So I won't claim I know a lot about your region. I certainly won't claim I know a lot about HR in Zimbabwe, but at least you could say I have been there. Today, I'm leading the HR Trend Institute. At the HR Trend Institute, we are trend watchers in the domain of people and organization. And I'm also the chief curator of the Museum of HR. So hopefully I can give you a guided tour in the Museum of HR one of those days as well, not today. And so what you some guidelines, and Memory already mentioned this, and we if you, and we can do it also centrally, but while I'm speaking at this moment, please switch off your microphone. You can do that in your little box, and then we don't hear strange noises. Keep your camera please on. For me it helps a little bit to see people, because sometimes well, it's not so pleasant to talk into a black box. And if I can see you, yeah, it gives me a good energy. So if you don't want to do it, don't do it. But for some of the people, it's not a problem. So keep your camera on, your microphone off, and for the moment, put your other devices on airplane mode. It's 40 minutes to 1 hour. If you're here, while you're here, well, you maybe better enjoy it. And in Zoom, you can choose, if you go to the upper right-hand corner between the speaker mode and the gallery mode. In the gallery mode, you will see yeah, a mosaic with all the people, and in the speaker mode, you will see me and you see the presentation. So that's handy to do. So much for the household things. So first, a small icebreaker, only 1 or 2 seconds. But my question to you is, how is your mood today? Yes, and it's very easy if you're on the camera. If not on the camera, I hope you can see it. If your hand is on the top, bottom corner, it's not so good. But if it's like this, well, you say, hey, my mood is good. So please, with your hands, show me how your mood is at this moment. Yeah? I see some people doing it. Excellent. Generally speaking, the mood seems to be quite good. So the second question is, and maybe you can go to the chat box. I have personally difficulty to see it. But if you go to the chat box and you can open it, put maybe one word for your expectations of today. So in one word, your expectations of this session. Super. Excellent. Great. What I will do, and memory, I'm just checking with you, but people can see my presentation at this moment, the icebreaker.
What we can see is just the first page of your presentation.
You can only see the first page of my presentation?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little bit strange. Because I share my screen. Sharing is paused. Bring your shared screen to the front. Can you see it now?
I don't know others. What I'm seeing is just your picture and the first way it says building a powerful work HR plan.
Yeah. So I wonder what is going wrong. So let me stop sharing for a moment. Because I had the feeling something is not right. And then I go back to share screen. Apologies for this, but I must make sure that you see it.
Yeah, we can see it now.
Now you see an icebreaker.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, super. You didn't miss a lot, but now I'm able to go. And now you see a slide with possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, super. If you do like this, if anything goes wrong, memory, please signal it to me. I can see you. Because of course I want everybody to follow it as good as possible. There are two possibilities you have today. If you are lazy or very busy, one of the two, you can have the 5-minute version. I will do a 5-minute version and then you're ready, you can go. So you maybe saved a lot of time, but of course you miss the more thorough version, which is about 30 minutes. Yes? So for the lazy ones, the 5-minute version. For the more thorough ones, I will present the longer version, the 5-minute version. So if you want to create a good HR plan in 5 minutes, you don't need a lot. Yes, these are the type of ingredients you will need. Good slogans. Yes, employer of choice, always good. Workforce of the future, it's always in place. Creating a performance culture, focus on people development. You can read those books. So these are your ingredients for the 5-minute plan. You pick a couple. I propose you don't pick all of them. And you say, hey, which do fit with our organization? And then you put them in this picture. Yes, this is your 1-page summary of your HR plan. And in the top of the roof, you see what are our big issues. And I will come back to that. But I put in some of the issues which I think are important for many organizations today. It's increasing productivity. It's being more innovative. How do we deal with new markets, with new situations? It's building resilience. You can read a lot about building resilience these days. And it's increasing well-being and safety of people in the organization. So those are, you could say, your overall goals. Then you put in the boxes. Maybe again, you please mute your microphone. Then you can put in the boxes you choose. I chose here. Hello. Can you please mute all your memory? Otherwise, you can mute the participants. Yes.
Yeah.
I put in some of the blue boxes here: strengthening leadership, the workforce of the future. Your organization will like that. Diversity and inclusion, of course, that should be there. And developing talent is in any plan. Then you see the arrow, improving the employee experience. You like to be fashionable. And the green one, getting the basics right. So you have your ingredients. You have put it in a nice picture. The only thing you need to do is put in your company logo up right corner and choose a catchy slogan. And we are entering the last of the 5 minutes. So catchy slogan for your HR plan. I gave you some suggestions here, and you can pick the one you like or make your own one. Many of the HR plans I've seen have these type of slogans. Of course, the first one is a little bit, you could say, over time, our most important assets are our people. If people say that, yeah, I don't like it, but you still see it a lot. Connecting the world, engage, produce, hire, train, retain. That's the one I like. New ideas, better HR. So you put in the slogan in the in the box, and ready you are. So those people who went for the quick version, the 5-minute version, they are ready now. They can copy this template, put their things in, go back to their work and say, I have a plan. Good luck. Now I go to the longer version. If you can still see me, I check with memory. Memory, can you see a slide with the 30-minute version?
Yes, yes.
Yeah? All right. So this is, you could say, the flow, and I will go in some of the details, the flow of the 30-minute version of building your HR plan. And it is a seven-step plan. And it goes from A to F, and there is a seventh element, G, which I will reveal later. And so you see a flow, and I won't go through the flow at this moment because I will take every step. What I will present you is the flow, and I will present you the templates, and we will make sure the presentation with the templates are made available afterwards. I will make sure they are on SlideShare, so you can download them and use them. The first step, and I am struggling a little bit. The first step, sorry, is step 1, step A. What are your big business issues? Okay, that's where it should start. What are your big issues? You could say, what is our strategy? Those things are often very much related. Today, it might be more about what are our current issues today, but it also might be derived from your strategy. So give it some thought, and there's a big blank box, but give it some thought of what are your current big issues. This is already in step A. It often goes wrong. I've seen many HR plans where step A is missing. Many of the plans start with what do we want to do in HR? What do we need to do in HR? That is not where you should start. The link between what are our big issues, what do we want to accomplish, that's where it should start. And remarkably, that's where it can go wrong. It can also go wrong if the issues in this box are phrased as HR issues. What I sometimes also see is that in this box, for example, you read talent management. That is one of our big issues. Or leadership development. Or increasing engagement. That is a big issue for us. That's a level too low, you should say. Talent management is, in a sense, a solution to deal with a certain issue or problem. It's not a problem in itself. And if I just scribbled in some of the things I already mentioned in the 5-minute plan, I would expect, if I look at organizations today, and if I'm talking to organizations today, that some of the words I mentioned in the yellow balls are on the list. And for many organizations today, It's about growth and productivity. You could also say, how can we add more value at this moment? Many organizations, at least in my world, but I'm sure also in your world, they have big issues. They want to survive. Yeah, it's not about 5-year strategy. It's how do we survive the coming year? Productivity has gone down for many organizations. For some organizations and for some people and teams, it has gone up. But for many organizations, they are struggling. People are not as productive as they used to be. People are and organizations are adjusting to the new situation. So how do we regain productivity? Innovation, I mentioned it already. I would expect that for many organizations that is on the list. How can we, yeah, you can say use, or how can we adapt, or how can we benefit from the situation as it is today? And maybe our old services and our old products are not appropriate for the situation today. So we have to innovate. And you see it small scale. For example, in my business is, in a sense, you could say the conference business. Well, many of the large scale live conferences are not taking place, and it will take a long time before they will take place. So we can wait until there are conferences again, or you can say, how can we innovate? What's new? And it might be small innovations, but it might be bigger innovations as well. Resilience. And if you go on Google or LinkedIn today and you look for a resilience, strengthening resilience, it's clear that that is one of the hot topics. Rightfully so. Many organizations are questioning, how can we build and strengthen the resilience of our organization? This current COVID crisis came, in a sense, you could say, as a surprise, but there will be other crises, there will be other situations, and we have to build and strengthen our resilience. It has to do a lot with people. So the question is, how can you build resilience in your organization? How can you build it in your people? And well-being, clearly high on the list. How can we make sure our people, but also our clients, but not only the people, but also maybe our suppliers, and in a wider sense, also how can we contribute to well-being in the wider society? So step one, what are our issues? Then step two is a relatively, you could say, it is, okay, if these are issues, what are the capabilities we need to strengthen? What are the capabilities we need to strengthen? And it might be, it can be all kinds of capabilities. It could be leadership capabilities. It could be technical capabilities. It could be operational capabilities. I will give you an example. A simple example is, obvious example is the capability to work remotely. For the last weeks, months, organizations have focused on how can we build and strengthen that capability. But another capability, I was working with a company in medical supplies. They had to transform their sales force. They had a traditional sales force going around and visiting potential clients. That's no longer possible. So in the new situation, they need a sales force with different capabilities. So you could say renewing the sales force, making sure the sales force can also work remotely. Susan, can you please mute? Yeah, please. That's a capability that needs to be strengthened. So, but it also might be regional capabilities. I say we want to grow our business in South Africa. Okay, then we have to build capabilities in South Africa to be able to sell there. So that's B. And C is not so much the capabilities, but it's the culture. What type of culture do we need to be able to deal with the issues or to realize our strategy, however you want to phrase it? Again, some things here are obvious, but not always happening. If you say creating a safe and healthy environment for our stakeholders, whoever they are, that's a cultural element in the organization. I worked for many companies, let's say that had a lot of oil and gas clients. In oil, let's say in oil and gas, of course, and mining, safety is on top of the list. For many of those companies, that was for a big part a cultural element. Are we able to create a culture where health and safety is high on the list? But also, if you talk about how can we improve innovation, there is a capability element, but certainly also a cultural element. How can we make sure that innovation is top of mind of many people in our organization? It's not about the innovation department, but it should be more widely spread. So, what are the issues? What are the capabilities we need to strengthen? And what are the culture we need? What is the culture we need to strengthen? But before you then do anything, still you don't do anything, it's important to analyze the gaps. Okay? So this is what we need. Where are we today? How do we know how it is with our capabilities? Have we a good clue of what the culture is in the organization and where the strengths is in the culture and where the weaker spots are in the organization? So also this is a step which in many organizations that I have seen is often weak. So there's all kind of we know what we need to do, but there's no real measurement. So this is all about analytics, people analytics, making sure that you have a good view on what is the situation today and what you can learn from different parts of the organization. So thorough analysis, people analysis. So now you know, you have kind of a priority list, you could say. And you could say, we know where we have the biggest gaps in our capabilities, and we know where we have a big gap in culture. And don't mind the small gaps, focus on the bigger gaps. So immediately you condense it and you have a kind of priority list. But that's step E. What are our priorities? And not 100 priorities or 15 priorities, but the recommendation is to make it a small list of priorities where HR, and we're talking about HR today, where HR can contribute. And now you have your whole, and I'm sure I did not mention them all, but as HR, you could say architect, as HR designer, you have a whole array of possible interventions you can do. And you see them, it's from, or how do we, what is our organizational design? How do we, are we going to look for new people? Or are we going to develop the existing population? Are we going to change our performance management system? Do we focus on employee experience design? So you have a whole array of possible interventions. And the question is, which of those interventions are most effective to deal with your issues? That's design question. And that's where our profession and our knowledge is super important. Because we as HR professionals, this is where we can add value. What works? What does not work? And we should be razor sharp. The risk is, and again, if I look and review HR plans, I often see a lot of things. You see plans and actions in all those areas. That's generally far too much. And a tool that has been helpful for me in the past is the effort impact matrix. And it's a super simple matrix, but ideally, of course, you want interventions that have a high impact and you can do with a low effort. Yes. So if you, in your design, you can start to think, well, where are the interventions in the solid green box? High impact, low effort. And well, that helps because why? Of course, you things in the red box you don't want to do at all, but often many of the HR interventions don't reach the green box. Example, one of the favorite interventions of HR people generally is learning and development. Yes. Okay, we have a culture issue, and now we need to train everybody to be able to fit in a new culture. So training and development is always on the list. Why? Because it's generally relatively easy, it's visible, but often the impact is very low. So think for yourself, looking at the blue boxes, where are the interventions that are generally high impact, low effort, and make your choice. Make a choice. Don't do everything. And I can talk lengthily, but of course, yeah, today we don't have the time to do that. But I have my personal opinion, but it's also here back to analytics. Can you prove that things work? Is there evidence that things work? Is there scientific evidence? It's not only analytics, but also science. Example, a clear example in the compensation and benefits area, still many organizations are spending a lot of time in designing clever bonus systems, while we know there's not a lot of scientific evidence that individual bonus systems contribute a lot to dealing with issues in organizations. So why spend a lot of time and effort on designing bonus systems if we know it's not going to work? And I can give various other examples here as well. So I hope this is clear. A memory?
I'm there.
Yeah. Yeah, for one reason or another, I cannot see the chat box. I don't know why that is.
The chat
But
box
are there any specific questions at this moment in the chat box?
No, not yet. Normally we tend to open it towards the end.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure if people have desperate questions that I answer them at this moment.
Yeah, they can put their questions there. If you've got any questions that you want attended to, please feel free to put your question there.
Okay, excellent. So, and just checking with your memory, you can still see the slides in a good way.
Yes, we can.
Yeah? Okay. Yeah. So this was step E. And then you could say this is still in step E, making your plan, designing your plan. You have worked. I go back. You have mapped possible interventions in the effort matrix. So then you get a kind of, okay, if we look at the capabilities we need to strengthen, you remember those. If we look at the cultural elements we need to strengthen, then you can start, it's a kind of grid, which are the interventions in which areas that are going to contribute to our issues. It looks easy, but this is a step I certainly recommend to spend time on. Because if you do things that don't connect back to your issues, strengthening capabilities, then the question is, why do you do them? Why do you do them? And of course, we can think about things you should do, especially in the compliance area. But try to focus on interventions that help to deal with those issues. And then the question is, why do we do other things? I go back to the 5-minute plan. And you remember that in the 5-minute plan, there was a big bar, getting the basics right. Yes. And if I often hear, if I talk to HR people or I listen to HR leaders presenting their plans, very often I hear, first, we need to get the basics right. Yes. And I understand it, but often it's also an excuse. Because you can spend a lot of time to get the basics right. And that I see in many organizations. They want to get everything right and all the blue boxes and getting the, well, in the organizations where I have worked, and they were generally a world-class organization, the basics were often not right. And if we spend all the time and effort in getting the basics right, then we are not busy necessarily with dealing with the most urgent issues of today. And that's a complaint I sometimes hear, that what is HR doing? Well, yeah, we are getting the basics right. Yeah. And also that is often connected to the system. First, we have to get the basics right, and we have to implement our super HR system. Well, it's not ready yet, yes? But if once the system is implemented, then HR heaven will be upon us. Well, also that is not true, yeah? Many of those big systems, and you need systems. I'm not saying you don't need that, but the promises of those systems often are not met. They say, once you have implemented our system everywhere around the world or everywhere in your organization, then you will be fantastic. Well, also that is not true. So focus and don't get distracted too much by, we need to get the basics right. So here is your kind of your overall plan. I say there, sorry, I'm struggling. Analytics, I can't repeat that enough. I can't repeat it enough. Work evidence-based. Always measure. See what works. Test it. Don't implement something big without trying it and testing it and working close with your internal and external customers. I also, you see that there's a box, do nothing. Sometimes it might be a lot better to do just nothing. Let's say we also, as human beings, but also as HR professionals and as leaders, we overestimate what we can do. And sometimes it might be just better to go with the flow, and things go quite well without any intervention. So consider that as well. I'm with step, no, I go the wrong direction. The gaps, I mentioned that. G, that's the last step. So you have so you talked about the issues, capabilities we need to strengthen, culture we need to strengthen. Where is the gap? Where are the big gaps? Priority list. Where are the interventions we can use cleverly? Impact, effort matrix. And then go back to your current projects and say, which project activities should we stop? And I think that should also be part of your plan. Stop with things. And I already mentioned some of the things. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Is it really helping us to deal with our most urgent issues? So if you count 7 steps, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 7 steps. I don't know why I used letters instead of numbers, but apologies for that. Pitfalls, and I already mentioned a couple of the pitfalls. One pitfall, taking too much HR as the starting point and not your organizational burning issues, in a sense. Wanting to implement the HR handbook, not helpful. Wanting to do everything, too much. Wanting to do things in a short time. Often the ambitions are too big. Like we want to change everything in a short time. Well, sometimes it's possible, but often it's not possible. Luckily, you could say in this COVID-19 crisis, we have seen that a lot of things are suddenly quite well possible fast. So that, in a sense, is good things. Wanting to do things for everybody, yeah, that's also, and that might be very Dutch, but in the Netherlands, it's a lot about equality. And so if you have a plan that doesn't deal with everybody in the organization, then people say, yeah, but what do we do for this group? And what do we do for that group? And what do we do for, well, again, then you lose focus and you say, well, we can't do everything and we can't be everything for everybody. Not working fact-based, I already mentioned that. And losing sight, and I think that might be one of losing sight of what people want. People focus and what management wants, but they are also people. And that has a lot to do with the way you work. We don't have time to deal with that today, but working in an agile way, using design thinking methodologies, because that ensures that you are working close to your clients. Are we doing things that the organization benefit, the people in the organization benefit, or are we getting too remote? So being close to your, I can call it customers, you could call it clients, but you know what I mean. It's also about, for example, candidates in the recruitment market. And there's a lot to say about that. I recommend, I have a small video, for example, on personalization. If we look at the important trends of it at this moment in HR, one of those important trends is personalization. And personalization is, are you willing and able to take individual needs, preferences of people into account, and don't do things that for everybody without looking at the individuals. Pitfalls. So last slide I want to show you, and I hope I don't confuse you too much. I took this from another presentation, but it's connected to here. If you look at your HR plan, and of course, there are questions about how are things affected by COVID-19 crisis. And my short message there is many, you could say, trends and developments that were already going on in the HR domain have been accelerated in the current crisis. And we can use those trends to increase the impact of HR. On this chart, you see again the 4 areas I mentioned earlier: productivity, innovation, building resilience, well-being. And I show you some of the HR areas where we can contribute a lot in those domains. I already mentioned personalization, but also the use of clever HR technology, of course, learning and development, also the way we're organized, etc. So I just give this here as a teaser. I have another video on my YouTube channel. If you go Tom Haak YouTube, there's a nice video. At least I like it, but I'm not very neutral. It's a small video on how do you, how is HR affected by the COVID-19 crisis, and what could you do? That's a video is available. So today it was about how do you make an impactful HR plan. I hope I've given you some ingredients. There's a template you can use. Here, you don't have to read those at this moment, but there are a couple of infographics I've made in the past you can use for your HR plan. The flow I explained, it's there, but also you could say kind of the chapters in your HR plan. And I encourage you to follow me, of course, link with me on LinkedIn, go to the website of the HR Trend Institute. There's more information. I mentioned the YouTube channel, Twitter. There are other channels. There's an abundance of information, and well, you are here, so you are certainly also a group of people looking out what's going on. And I think that is an essential ingredient of the HR profession, even more today than in the past. Look what's going on, not to replicate what others are doing, but to be able to use clever solutions that fit in your organization. And also there's no secret recipes that work everywhere. Don't look for those, but try to work close to what is going on in your organization. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen. and I go to
Okay.
memory.
Thanks, Tom. Let me see if we can see there's a question there from Joanne. It says, do you see many differences according to company size? Would you say the same for little businesses? This is a question for you, Tom.
Yeah, I understand that. So is there a difference between small and big companies? And I think it's maybe not between big and small, but there are certainly many differences between companies. And it's also what is the state you are in. I see organizations today, big and small, that are suffering. And I see small organizations. If you're in the right segment, you are growing. For example, the soap business is doing very well at this moment. And the when it comes to HR planning and making an HR plan, and there what I sometimes see is that small companies try to do too much company, and I think that is I'm in contact with startups and scale-ups, and especially when they become larger, they say we should do something with HR. What should we do? And then their tendency is, well, if they make a bad choice, they hire an ex-HR manager from a big company. And that's probably the worst thing they can do, because that person comes in and says, "Oh, what? It's a mess here." And many HR people from big organizations are very much focused on getting things in order, neatness, orderliness, and that's most of the time not very helpful. So for small companies, it's not about copying what big companies are doing, but making sure you do the things that fit with your company. And I can say a lot about that, but there are small companies that are working on their handbook HR. Well, that's a waste of time. So try to do things in a new way, in a different way. And smaller companies probably have more possibilities to be agile and adaptive than big organizations that are stuck in their old modes. Not all of them.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Tom. And I will now open up the session for anyone with questions. If you want to ask Tom directly, you can ask.
Wave your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And
please raise your hand, and we'll give you an opportunity to ask questions.
And memory is there's Johan has a question.
Johan, yes, Johan,
yeah. So thanks, Tom, and memory, and sorry to a second question, no. But Tom, you have a lot of experience in HR for many years, and you probably see this situation a very unusual one. Do you think it's the time to really be the function that we should be? It's now the time. It's now the last. I don't know if it's the last, but it's really the time to be there, to be present, to add value. It's now the time for HR.
I would say absolutely yes. Yes. So if you look at the type of issues I mentioned, HR can contribute a lot in each of those areas. Productivity, helping, in a sense, it's about, can we help people to do their work better? That's typically an HR domain. Well-being, traditional HR domain. Maybe we have floated a little bit away from that area. We've seen many HR people saying, well, we are management and we are super important. So well-being, that's maybe not on our agenda. That's coming back. So I think this is a good moment. And so the answer is yes, but the but is we should grab the opportunity. Because there are also dangers. Because companies in dire straits, companies under pressure, tend to take measures which sometimes are super unfriendly. Yes, we can wait. There will be layoffs. There will be people fired. There will be tough times. That's unavoidable. But also there, it's up to HR, or it's part of the HR job to make sure we do things in a respectful, good way. So yes, if you look at the issues, the global issues, regional issues, country issues, high on the list today, it's COVID-19. But we have many other issues. Every area HR can contribute. We should grab the opportunity by, and I mentioned, by working evidence-based. So work evidence-based. I think, because if we let that go, work evidence-based, use clever analytics, and work in, you could say, speedy. Because if you are too slow, back to your question, we should be fast. We can't be, so, oh yeah, we have to study and we have to look at it and we have, no, we have to be super fast. And that's also I mentioned 2 areas now which have not been traditional, easy for HR. And being fast and working evidence-based, and you could say certainly using technology in a clever way. For many HR professionals, those 3 areas are not common ground. And we need to make sure that we are also very skilled and knowledgeable in those areas: analytics, technology, agile, fast working, and being people-centric. So it's not an easy job. Many excellent and good people in HR.
Okay, Tom, thank you very much. Tom, I've got a question I will allow others to ask as well. On your first stage, you did indicate that we should look at the business issues, the business challenges that are affecting organizations. One of the challenges that I see in practice is that most HR people are accused by other colleagues, especially at senior level, of not understanding the business, of not understanding, having a proper grasp of what is happening in the business.
Yeah.
What is your take on that?
Well, I can't judge that. But if people are, you could say, accused of that's an issue. And partly it is, you could say, due to HR themselves. And I already mentioned it. It's not so, because if you talk to employees, I sometimes hear the same type of complaint, that people say HR has drifted away from us. We don't know them. We don't see them. They are not active. So then you are in a corner where you don't want to be. Management is saying, well, they don't understand the business, and employees say, well, they are not. They don't understand us. So I'm not saying it is easy, but you better make sure you do both.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Business, for me, that is a super important element, because if you don't understand the business, if you don't understand the issue, you cannot design. We talked about the architecture. You cannot design the right interventions, and how can I say it? It's not super difficult, but it's not super. But you should take the effort, and sometimes it means replacing HR people or finding other HR people. But I think there's an opportunity. I don't know what other people think about this, but we need HR people that are kind of jack of all trades, understanding the business, but having an eye for all the stakeholders, also society. That makes it even more complicated, because also as companies, as organizations, we have a big role to play to make sure we are a respectful, equal opportunity type of society. That's where we should play a role. We cannot say it's only about our company. As long as we survive, that is not the solution. So it's also an activist type of job. Mm-hmm. Interesting, but complicated.
Thank you. Let me take. Are there any other questions from the participants before we close? Any questions?
So I thank you for your attention. I think I hope you could follow everything. The slides I will make available on slide share. If you go to slide share Tom Haak or HR Tom Haak is the best, then you will find the slides. I will put them there later today. On the different channels you can find more information. I realized this was a very short impulse. What I would like to ask you as a kind of quick feedback to put 1 or 2 words in the chat box about what you thought of today. Just type in your 1 or 2 words. That's helpful for me. It's helpful for memory to get some feedback. We're trying to increase the presentations all the time. So please do that. And I think this session was also taped, memory.
Yes, it's recorded. I will share with you and the participants maybe by end of day or tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Yeah, we just need to remove the first part when you and I were chatting.
All right. So just if you're on the camera, wait with your. It was good to see you. And I thank you for your time, and hopefully we can do another session at some time. It's always good to connect, and it's rather efficient as well. All right.
Thank you very much, Tom, for this opportunity. We hope we will be able to engage you in the future, and possibly if COVID goes away, you should be able to come back to Zimbabwe.
I hope that, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Let's keep in touch. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
You can see the comments there in the chat, many of them. Very good comments there.
Thank you very much, Tom, and memory. And
thank you very much. Thank you.
We see each other, John.
Stay healthy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tom.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Memory.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks very much.